It's a chilly winter morning sitting at just 36 degrees in Glengary, West Virginia on January 6, 2012. 56-year-old David Hutzler and his son James, who's lovingly called Macky by friends and family, were at home getting back into their normal routines as the holidays just wrapped up. We do not know if they were sleeping or if they were getting started for their day, but it didn't matter. Horror was about to strike them regardless. Firemen and investigators would soon flood the house, finding that David and Macky had both been shot execution style before being set on fire in their own home. Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Ray and you've come to my channel, Close Range Crime. Thank you guys for stopping in and checking this out because we really need to get eyes and awareness on this case and see if we can prompt some new information and see if we can help solve it. So my channel is basically going to be all about true crime, solved and unsolved. This particular case, however, is kind of like my documentary. So instead of making it all in one video, that would be probably a couple hours long, I'm going to break this down into 2 or 3 episodes, and there will be follow-ups as well. So just don't want you to get sick of my face and turn off the TV halfway in between. Also, all of the contact information that you could possibly need will be listed towards the end of this video. And I'm also going to tell you about a couple ways that you can help this investigation, even if you're not close to it and you don't know anything. Stick around for the very, very end because there are going to be some select scenes and shots that I'm going to put in there to show you what's coming up next. So let's get close into it, unravel this case, and see what we can pull out. This is the case of David and Macky Hutzler. When this happened in 2012, people talked about it, but no one really expressed fear. Why not? There was a person or persons out there capable of killing a child. Why wouldn't the community really be on edge? Well, the simple reason for that is gossip. People were talking. Talk was flying around that this was a murder-suicide. There was talk that 56-year-old David had shot his son, shot himself, set the home on fire. The lead investigator, Detective Brandt, was really pushing this story of murder-suicide. There were 2 other seasoned professionals, a fire chief and another head detective, that were telling Brandt that there was no way that this was murder-suicide, that everything about this was suspicious. There was a very large dispute over this.
We have the fire chief and the head detective. They fought back and forth with Trooper Brandt and swore they fought. It was their jurisdiction. It was an arson. Trooper Brandt took it. They said, this is not murder-suicide. He said, it's double murder. They both said it. They fought it.
Despite the deep conflict about this, it would hit the news. This was a murder-suicide. All their friends, all their family said no way, absolutely no way that David would do this. He was a loving dad. He loved his son so much, and it made absolutely no sense. Kelli, the daughter of David and the sister of Macky, tell us that the press release actually came out before the coroner's report was even finished. How does that happen? This certainly will not be the most shocking evidence that you're going to hear about in this case. Believe me when I say there is more to come. So obviously this was tragic to anyone, but in reality, it calmed people down because this seemed like a family affair. So no one really has to be scared that they were next. Everything about that was wrong. There was still a killer or killers out there, and the family and friends of David and Macky knew it. It would take an entire year of Kelli relentlessly pushing until it was finally ruled double homicide. This crime involves greed, it involves deception, secrecy, a torn family, questionable detectives, and many, many people who know information. Some are speaking out now, some are not. There will be contact information at the end of this video for anyone who may have information about this case or the players involved. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You know, I started this just thinking I would make a YouTube video and put it out there so that there's some type of recognition, so that people start talking about this and being more aware. But I didn't know what I was getting myself into. This turned into an investigation for me. Talking to people, digging up articles, getting a hold of any and everyone I could that knew anything about this case. The goal here is still to raise awareness, but there's some information that will have to be held back simply because if we shared it, it would jeopardize the case, and that's the last thing that we want to do. So we want to raise awareness for this. Please share this video, especially if we live in the area. Let's get justice for this innocent dad and his innocent son. Now, while I go through this, please remember, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And the theories that are in here are just that. They're theories. When something can be proven, I will provide proof. Most names have been changed in order to protect those involved, and again, to preserve information in the case. I want to give a trigger warning because we will be talking about the murder of a 9-year-old boy and his dad. We will be talking a little bit about the coroner's report, so these things can be graphic for some people. So user discretion is advised. Let's talk about David and Macky for a little bit. These two had a really strong bond. Macky was going back and forth between visits with his mother and his father, but he really enjoyed time with his father. He was kind of like the little shadow every time he could go see him and hang out. David was very protective of him. Any family and any friends would tell you that he was trying his damnedest to be a good father. He was sentimental and very much cherished his family and his friends.
He took pride in things that belonged to my Hulker and my grandma. Like, he cherished them. And like when I was up there, when he passed away, like he had pictures of grandma and Hulker. Like everything was going through, like in papers and all that. But he cherished things of that nature.
Although David was a gun collector, he was unlike many people who lived in that area and did not hunt. He just did not like to kill animals. He actually had feral pigs that he allowed to roam free on his land. So David had 148 acres of land, which was basically just passed down in his family. Not too far away from his trailer, he ran a convenience store. So that was one way that he made his money. He was also the type of person to buy things, fix them, and then sell them. Anything from cars to electronics, you name it, he would fix it and sell it. There was talk that he wanted to put some trailers on the back half of the property and rent them out, but it seemed like that kind of changed as time went by. He was actually a sovereign citizen, which I know that when people say that word, there's a negative connotation to it. But it seems like his beliefs were really focused around the fact that the government impedes on citizens' lives. He expressed his beliefs on forums dedicated to this topic. And he was also in a group, which we will talk about later because that actually does end up being important to us. Everyone who talks about David says how friendly and how genuine he was as a person. He was very giving. I found this article from US News quoting one of his family members, Cole McCulloch, stating, "He was happy that day. That's how I'll remember him. He's in heaven now waiting for us. He's the kind of person that literally, if he saw you needed something, he would give you the shirt off his back. All I know is I lost my uncle and cousin and our family is just destroyed. My mom is real sad." He really hated conflict. He would avoid it. He just wasn't a person to talk bad about people. These are two great traits to have, but unfortunately, when it comes to the case, that's a huge barrier. Overall, just seems like a really genuine, nice guy. Something that was known to David's family and close friends is the fact that he did have a problem with alcohol. In talking with people who are close to him, it basically seemed like it was a coping skill because he would only drink when his son wasn't around. He would never drink in Macky's presence, and basically what Annie, his friend, tells me is that he was just down and out, and you can always tell when you talk to him on the phone. Without even hearing Macky or not hearing Macky, you could tell just in David's voice where he was. And there was a sadness in his voice when Macky wasn't around.
Yes, he did have a bit of a drinking problem, but he never drank. I could tell when Macky was around him. He didn't have that desire. He was trying to feel the pain of not being with Macky when he would drink. But even when he did drink, after I got to know him, he was never belligerent toward me. He was, but he did withdraw from everybody when Macky wasn't with him. Macky was his life. Macky was his reason for living. His whole life revolves around his children.
So sadly, it just seems like he used alcohol to cope with the situation that he was in. Macky was just 9 years old. He was described as a very caring and sweet kid. He did seem to be more on the sensitive side, but outgoing in a way that he had no trouble making friends. He loved the Boy Scouts and had just started taking karate. He was the kind of kid that could entertain himself and find something to do no matter what was going on, but that didn't stop him from being involved in everything his dad was doing. He was homeschooled and very creative. He loved to learn, and he hit all his milestones as expected.
Macky was crawling around like his shadow. They would dress alike and they're different camouflage. He looked like a very skin. He had a little lazy acting. Red hair, and he was a sweetheart. He loved his dad.
Macky was adventurous, kind, and loving. Unfortunately, Macky did get sick more than most children, but David made sure Macky was getting all his health and his nutritional needs met.
Macky was happy. He was quiet. He was quiet. You didn't really hear much in the background from him. He was usually either watching something or busy doing something. Yeah, they were happy. The children were happy together. They just seemed, every interaction that I heard and experienced or might have Skype, it was a very loving relationship. They're just very happy to be around each other.
Macky was adventurous, kind, and loving. I think that one of the best things that I heard about Macky was the fact that he basically took on a big brother role to any kid that was younger than him. I sat down one day to talk to one of David's friends, and he brought a younger girl with him. I don't know if it was his daughter or stepdaughter. I'm really not sure. And I also can't even tell you her age. She could have been 17, 19, 21. But what I can tell you is that she didn't speak through this entire interaction that I had. Anytime Macky's name come up, or we started to talk about the incident, she just welled up with tears. It's been 11 years, and that little girl was traumatized then, and she's traumatized now. David actually had plans, big plans. Although he had talked about possibly putting some trailers on his land on the back property, It seems to me from what I've heard, he ditched that idea. He started to make plans to put a trailer on Annie's property in Mississippi. So she had a decent amount of land. He could put a trailer, a little bit away, and they could basically just kind of like live. Macky could play with her kids. He really sounded like he needed a new start. The only person that knew he was moving to Mississippi was Annie and Macky. They were the only two. He kept this to himself. He didn't want anybody to know. He was just kind of silently making his moves.
I was the last one to speak to him. And everything was great that night. Macky was excited. Dave was excited. We were making plans. He and I had agreed nobody was to know that him and Macky were going to come down to Mississippi. But Dave and I had been talking, and I had talked to Macky even last night, and he was talking about he was excited to come and see the girls and, my granddaughters, and Dave had talked to him about coming and living down in Mississippi with me. And I remember Dave and Macky were talking about how he would be like a big brother to the girls. And we talked about all kinds of stuff. All kinds of, how we would want to raise, what kind of animals we wanted to raise, how much garden spaces did we want to raise, what did we, everything about living, everything about anything, the conversation just kept flowing here, there, and yonder, and it was, like I said, it was very upbeat, very positive.
Now, did you have a timeline on that, or was he talking like in a week, a month?
He was trying to sell the property and then come down.
Okay.
Is what he told me. As soon as he could get it. So he said it wouldn't be too long, he didn't think.
It makes you wonder if the investigators even took that into consideration when making their ruling of murder-suicide. This is a big part of their victimology, and it's a very important part to the case. Now, don't get me wrong. Should David leave, he would be leaving behind a lot of family and a lot of friends that loved him. But there were just two stressors in his life that I think really played a big part in why he wanted to leave. One being that sovereign citizen group that I was telling you about earlier, and the other actually being a family member. Both these things are a big part of this case, and I'll be discussing more of that in detail. Glengary is in Berkeley County, which is in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. The area at the time in 2012, there was about 600 residents, so it's a small, tight-knit community, yet everyone kind of wanted their space. It's very rural. Both news and rumors travel very quickly. Most people just enjoy their privacy. However, people still talk. You still have rumors going on. There's a lot of people there who just have a lot of family members in the area, and it's not unlikely for things to spread very quickly. It was a generally safe area, and the most crime that happened the most often was burglaries. In 2012, Berkeley County only had 4 murders, so definitely not a dangerous area. And the same goes for 2011. And just a quick note, nationwide homicides decreased by 48% from 1993 to 2011. I bring this up because if you're anything like me, you're going to question some of these detectives' actions and lack thereof. So I just wanted to give an idea of what was going on at the time. Things seemed to be pretty average. By some miracle, we have Google Maps that shot images in May of 2012, only a few months after this incident happened. This is Apple Harvest Drive, and right here we see David Hutzler's driveway that led right up to his trailer. His trailer's right here on the right. Obviously, you can tell it's being demolished at the time. cars and trucks would be in this area. So all of those have been moved. And there's now a fence in this area, but at the time there was no fence. So as you can see, as you go down the road, it's very private. You can see the rubble to the left where things are being taken apart. And then as you go over here, so field is his property. Again, he had 148 acres. This is his store. Now the driveway runs right to his store. If you look over here, you can see the back end of the property, which is very large. There are dirt paths where both ATVs and vehicles could fit through. If you go over here, there's also a path back there in the back. So if anybody would have come from the back end, it's very, very possible. Another possibility, someone may have been hiding back there in their vehicle. This is probably what it looked like in January of 2012, so you don't have much coverage. So I doubt that, but I just did want to point that out. It's just such a beautiful area for something so sinister to happen. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Ken Maines. He is in Pennsylvania, and he's a retired detective that does come on YouTube and goes over things that the general public wouldn't know about crime scene assessment and just looking at crimes in general.
And not go down certain routes. I just strictly try to stick with the crime scene photos, victimology, some interviews, and let the crime scene speak to me and tell me what I see.
So I have to give a shout out to him here because he is very adamant about going to crime scenes, regardless of how long ago an incident happened. He always says, go back to the crime scene. And I got to tell you, when we did, it was very eerie. As soon as we got out of that car, we heard nothing but gunshots in the distance. And just the mood that sat between Kelli and I, it was just so solemn, little eerie, but also a little refreshing because of the fact that Kelli knew that we were doing this video and it was going to raise some attention. So some positive feelings in there as well. But when we went back to that crime scene, it actually really did help in trying to assess how the whole incident happened back then in 2012. And the land itself, of course, it's been sold. The property owners of Shadowhawk is a gun range that is out there in Glengary. I have to give a huge shout out to them because they were so welcoming, letting us come in and basically film their property and take a walk around their property. So massive shout out to them for that. I love you guys. Thank you so much for letting us do that. It was invaluable. So when we walked around the property, we just basically thought about different ways this incident could happen because of the distance from the road to the trailer, to the backyard, and then the distance between the store and the trailer and what was on the other side of the road. So it was just really important information. And it was, like I said, the gunshots in the back just made it just made it more intense, I think.
Wow. The last time that I was up on Daddy's land, his land was beautiful. Oh, it was such a beautiful day. You could feel their presence in the air. His land was beautiful. I had cold chills down my arms, my neck, the way that the air was blowing through my hair. I look over at Daddy's store. He just wanted to make something for his babies. And you could hear the gun shooting over in the gun range, over yonder, as they would say. And the American flags up there with the wind blowing. It was rippling. Perfect. And then to the right, such a beautiful sight where Daddy and Macky's home once stood strong, where they took their last breaths, stands a new home, which made my heart smile. I took a few deep breaths, several, to be honest. I looked around and I tried to play back January 6, 2012, between 8 and 8:30 a.m. on that cold morning. I tried to picture the school bus setting up in the driveway. I just hope my daddy knows his legacy will forever live on by me. Not only, they said he took his only son and they left his only daughter here to fight for justice. I just want my daddy to know that I'm so proud of him for always making a way, always being an entrepreneur, always loving me, always loving my little brother, baby Macky. And as I speak about it right now, I can feel his presence. I can feel baby Macky's presence. The last time I was up there to see my daddy when he was alive, baby Macky continued to walk behind him in the store. He was his shadow. I love you, Daddy. Forever your little girl, Kelli Joe.
So as Kelli said, a new home has been put in place. And as we go over here, you can see the back land looks much like it did before. We still have that building over there that's now used for the business for Shadowhawk Gun Range. And then if we go over here, look across the road, we can see still that there's that little area that's carved out. Maybe it's a driveway, not sure, but it's still there. You can just imagine how everything would just pop and be so vibrant and so green in the summertime. And honestly, the vegetation probably looked a lot like this in January. Kind of barren land, nothing's really green. Just like how this trailer is set up, David's trailer was set up to have this porch with the steps going down in the back. This was their back door that they used. The back end of the property is just beautifully kept. And really, other than that fence and the fact that it is now a gun range, not much has changed. Now, these murders occurred on January 6, 2012, which was a Friday. And then on top of that, they occurred in the morning, which is, not quite usual for homicides like this, of this nature. Tend to think more at, after dark and in the middle of the night where something like this would happen. But because it happened during the day, we have more information on the timeline than we would had it happened at another time. So the area that is in his driveway right behind his mailbox, there's a bus that sits there from 8 o'clock to 8:15 ready to make its routes. So it's sitting there at 8 o'clock, sits for 15 minutes, and then it's going to take off down the road to pick up some kids. It's going to turn around and come back through. And the day that this happened, that bus driver was sitting there until 8:15, heard and saw nothing, left to go get those children. And then when he came back through, he saw that the house was on fire. It was engulfed in flames. The call came in at 8:26 to emergency services. I've heard also that there was another driver that was coming by that tried to help in the situation. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I would really like to talk to either the bus driver or the person, the other Good Samaritan that tried to help in the situation. So please reach out to me if you are those people or if you know those people. So we have the trailer that is 30% burnt. It's burnt on the left side if you're looking at it from the front of the trailer. And that left side would have been closest to where the bus was parked as well. But again, the bus driver says he doesn't see anything, doesn't hear anything. So whatever happened between 8:15 and 8:26 in the morning. So this is a very quick crime, in and out. So much of what we know about the crime scene has come from Kelli, and she was just recently permitted to see the crime scene photos. I believe she said about a year and a half ago she was able to do that. What she tells us is that the fire was contained to the bedroom. There were 2 fire companies that came on scene and they were able to put out the fire so that it didn't spread past the bedroom. I was actually able to find and contact Travis Horn, who was the first firefighter on the scene. And the information that he told me was just very kind of general, just stating that when he was there, he did see that there were a lot of cars at the scene. So he figured that there were people inside, and that when he went in and then saw the 2 bodies burned, they then backed out and waited for investigators. The rest of the trailer was just covered in ash, but it wasn't burnt.
If you would have came in the front door, Macky's room was to the right, and then you had the living room. Like my dad had his computer and stuff set up there, the TV. Then right there along that wall was the Christmas tree. Then it was like a little island in the kitchen. You could walk around it. Then there was a door, back door to the right, with like a little garage thing, like he had built. And then right there was his bedroom.
The Christmas tree was knocked over, and that was the only real sign of a struggle that we could tell. There might have been more in the bedroom, but with it being burnt as badly as it was, we wouldn't be able to know. We know that accelerants were used because the police brought in specialized dogs to pinpoint where the accelerants were used, and it was said that they hit on 4 different spots. It's highly, highly likely that their bodies were doused in whatever accelerant it was, because bodies don't usually burn like that just with fire. So she sees the pictures, and her dad and her baby brother are charred to the point where she can't even tell if they're laying on their back or their stomach. But they're both laying in bed side by side, and David has been shot once in the head, and Macky has been shot in his head, but also in his chin. So it's highly likely that Macky was struggling with whoever it was that did this. Poor Macky had 17% accelerants in his lungs, which would mean he was alive when he was being set on fire. David, however, had 0%. And if you think about the fact that they ruled this a murder-suicide, how is it possible that he had 0% accelerants in his system? It makes absolutely no sense. Another very interesting fact is that David was left-handed. And with the position of where he was shot, from the photos that Kelli saw, she explains to us that there is no way that he would have shot himself where he did.
I knew my dad was left-handed. My father was shot on the back right side of his head. I'm explaining to them, I'm telling them, my dad is left-handed. There's no way that he was able to maneuver his hand in the back of his head and shoot it right side. But the angle it was, my dad couldn't have fit he didn't shoot it right-handed.
There's really no way possible that he could have had that gun pointed in the direction of where that bullet went. Now, here's the most damning part of this case, and this is something that Kelli only found out about a year and a half to 2 years ago. No gun that David had in that trailer matched a gun that would be used that killed them. Police were not able to find the gun that actually shot the 2. It was missing. He had 58 firearms, and not one of those guns was used to kill them. So how in the hell was this ever ruled a murder-suicide when you have no gun at the crime scene? It's just unbelievable to me. What the hell was the detective thinking? What was his position? Is he being shady? You know, what is going on to where you would rule a murder-suicide with absolutely no murder weapon to be found? It just makes absolutely no sense. You don't have to be a detective to understand that that is not possible. So the facts are this. Macky had a glancing wound in his chin, and he was shot in the head, which eventually killed him. David was shot in the head, in the back right. He was left-handed. So that would have made things unnecessarily uncomfortable or maybe even impossible for him to pull off. There are 4 areas where accelerants were used. We have the fact that they were set on fire, nothing was taken. David had no drugs, no alcohol in his system. Macky had 17% accelerants in his system while David had none. And no gun can be found at the scene. They were set on fire, left to burn. So what Kelli tells us is that investigators first told her that the cable cord to the internet had been cut, and David had a video system set up with that. So that had been cut, and then later on, at some point, she was told that it was not cut. However, there hasn't been any information at all about any video that would have been taken. But again, the investigators aren't giving us all information, of course. Another very important piece to this case is the fact that nothing seemed to be stolen. He had 58 firearms, which were all there. The store wasn't even broken into. Since the beginning of this investigation, there's also been a black truck that has been part of this. Either a tip or a lead somehow came up, and a black truck was supposedly seen in the area. They were looking for the person or persons driving that vehicle, and as far as I know, they have never come forward. He also had $8,000 in his pocket at the time he was killed. And your thought about that was probably my first thought about that. How in the hell do you have $8,000 just sitting in your pocket? But remember, this was 8 a.m. So my guess is maybe he planned to go to the bank with that, or probably not the bank because of his beliefs about the government, but maybe he planned to go get a money order to send to Annie to get the trailer up and moving. Now, Annie tells us when she spoke to David on the phone the night before, she said they spoke until about 4 or 5 in the morning, and she said that he had sold a lot of silver that day and was very happy about it. So I got curious, of course, and I wanted to see how much silver it would actually take to have $8,000. And it's actually 17 bars. So what you're seeing here is the amount it takes to have 1 bar melted down. And you can see in comparison to this person's hand that it's not a lot. This is 1 bar right here. So if you think about the fact that he had 17, it really wouldn't take up that much room. And it's actually pretty likely that he could have had 17 since he was a big collector. The price of silver was actually very, very high at this point. This right here is silver prices, a 100-year chart showing the price of silver. So you can see here in 2012, silver was the highest it had been in a very long time. Most likely he was tracking that and knew a good time to sell it and knew that this would be the best time to sell his silver. So I think that rules out the idea of any illegal activities. It looks like here that he was just really good at buying and selling things, such as silver. Very much looks like the silver had a very big part in why he was able to have that much cash on him. The silver was believed to be kept in a lockbox, and interestingly enough, he had a safe in his room which was open and empty. My thought is it was probably open because he had just taken all that silver out. I also have a question of if there was possibly a gun in there. It would make sense for someone like David to have a firearm in his bedroom in case something like this was going to happen. And maybe one of the two reached for that gun and it was taken from them. You know, it's not uncommon at all for kids to learn how to use firearms very early in life around that area. So Macky was very well known of how firearms worked, and I think he would have hesitated to get that firearm, and neither would David. So my question then becomes, was there ballistics taken? And if so, those 2 bullets in Macky match the same bullet that was in David? Because if not, that almost proves that there were at least 2 people involved in this. But again, this is something that we don't know because the police aren't telling us. So again, 58 firearms that were not taken, $8,000 in his pocket that wasn't taken, and they didn't break into the store. They didn't steal anything from the store either. It was said that there was some gold laying around as well. So all this tells us this is not a burglary. They are not there for money. They are there to kill. That is their mission. They are there to murder these 2. So it's ruled a murder-suicide, but everyone close to David knows that this isn't the case. For the most part, everyone in this area knew that this happened. There was the original journal paper that stated this fire happened, and then there was a follow-up to that stating that it was ruled a murder-suicide and that we need help in solving this. Later that year in April, the Journal News of West Virginia added one more article. The local Boy Scouts of Martinsburg, West Virginia, as well as Jeff Hollis, planted a memorial tree to honor Macky, as well as added a plaque in a park in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Also that year, there was an article that came out from Hate Watch, which we'll go into. Sadly, Kelli has reached out to the Journal over the years in order to get this case put back in the forefront and get it back in the Journal News. However, they have not cooperated with that. I myself reached out to news channel WJAL because they were on scene at some point after the fire happened, and they had interviewed a family member and I believe another person about the incident when it happened. And it was within a day or 2. It might have been the same day, I'm not sure. But that video is no longer on the internet. So I emailed them to see if they would be able to send me that video or link me to a copy of that video. And I also called them twice. And unfortunately, I did not get any response with any of these things. Kelli did do an interview with Catch My Killer podcast. It's episode 125, and that will be linked below if you'd like to listen to that. The Crime Report and News in Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia Facebook page. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to them because they have been wonderful in posting comments from both myself and especially Kelli Hutzler, trying to get information on this case, trying to keep it moving and out in the public. So thank you so much to the admins that run that Facebook page. We really appreciate that. So there's been no updates since. As of right now, there are still people who do not know that the ruling was changed. Other people think that the case is solved. And for the most part, everyone's just forgotten, except for family and friends. It's like it never happened. In a silent world, who killed David and Macky Hutzler? That's the name of the Facebook group that Kelli has started and has been running for quite some time now in order to try to keep this alive and keep this going, keep people talking and trying to get some sort of justice for her dad and her brother. There will be a link to that website at the end. I really encourage people to go and support that because right now that's the only media source and the only connection that we seem to have in terms of keeping the community updated and keeping this alive. So there's been no updates since. As of right now, there are still people who do not know that the ruling was changed. Other people think that the case is solved. And for the most part, everyone's just forgotten except for family and friends. It's like it never happened. In a silent world, who killed David and Macky Hutzler? That's the name of the Facebook group that Kelli has started and has been running for quite some time now in order to try to keep this alive and keep this going, keep people talking and trying to get some sort of justice for her dad and her brother. There will be a link to that website at the end. I really encourage people to go and support that because right now that's the only media source and the only connection that we seem to have in terms of keeping the community updated and keeping this alive. I just want to take a brief moment to recognize Kelli Hutzler as being the most fierce advocate I think I've ever seen. She's just been nonstop, such an amazing person to work with, and she has reached out to so many other people, and she's just went through so many other avenues. In viewing this and sharing this and all that good stuff, you're helping her out and standing behind her because she's leading the pack 100% and she is feisty and ready to go. So just a huge shout out to her for being fearless, for being fierce in all of this, and for staying motivated this entire time. So we're really taking a deep dive into this case, obviously. This is the information that we have now, and of course we have more information that's going to be shared in episode 2. There are so many different things that we have to discuss. We have to discuss the lead detective being fired only a couple months after this incident happened. We need to talk about the history of an absolute monster, as well as discuss some other people with crazy, long, intense rap sheets. We have to discuss the family, talk about their intricacies, as well as just the family dynamics. And we also need to talk about the Hutzler property because that does matter and play a part in this. We're going to discuss information about the police and how they handled things. Some of you may know that West Virginia State Police are in a lot of hot water now for things that were going on. We'll even discuss a little bit of that because it does apply to this case and the fact that there may be a lot of missteps that happened on purpose. We're going to talk about those threats, of course, analyze those, see if any of those threats, maybe someone made good on them. And then we're also going to discuss another incident that happened there where another death that happened on that property just 1 year later. We're just going to acknowledge and pay our respect to that. We also have to discuss missing evidence, a lawsuit that occurred, and the fact that government files that pertain to Kelli's case keep disappearing. So what I ask of you is to please share this, please subscribe. Feel free, if you would like, to leave any questions that you have down below, and I'll try to answer them on the next episode. There's a couple ways that you can get involved with this. We already discussed the Facebook page, which is going to be listed down below. We also have a change.org petition in which we're trying to get the FBI involved. Because there have been missteps with both the local sheriff's department and the West Virginia State Police, it's time to get someone else involved. Since this does involve the murder of a child, they are able to get involved, and it would be nice to just have a fresh pair of eyes on this. We also have a GoFundMe page, and that is going to be used to raise awareness towards this and do some type of memorial and outreach for Macky and David in some way, hopefully this spring or summer. We also want to get some billboards out there. We've even talked about possibly getting another private investigator involved. So yes, we've had a private investigator work on this case before, and yes, that will be brought up in the next episode as well. If there's any way that you can help at all, whether it's just liking this video, subscribing, sharing, or if you can donate, that would be wonderful. I want to say thank you again to everyone who has helped out and everyone who's spoken out. And please, please feel free to reach me if you have more information that you want to share. Any tips can also be directed towards Detective 9, who is the current detective on the case, but I really do ask that you share that with someone else as well, rather it be myself or Kelly. And I just ask that because there's been sketchy things that have happened with this case, all the way up to Kelly's files with the government being deleted. So I'm not saying that Detective 9 would do that. I'm just saying that any big step we would like to be involved in. Crimestoppers is also offering a $1,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest in this case. So as promised, I want to briefly touch on these two missing person cases that we have in Berkeley County, one being from Martinsburg and the other one being from Jarrettstown, so right in the area that the Hutzler murders happened. So let's take a look at those. Derek McCain of Martinsburg, West Virginia has been missing since sometime between July 25th and August 14th of 2020. He would now be 35 years of age. He's also known as Ghost. He is 5'5", 160 pounds, white Caucasian with strawberry blonde, reddish hair. He has several tattoos, including Aiden on his chest, a skull on his upper left bicep, a large star on his left hand, black ink tattooed on his face at the lower corner of each eye, a heart and a teardrop, and he may have other tattoos. There is an $800 reward being put up for any information, and you can give that information to Sergeant T.M. Snyder at Berkeley County Sheriff's Department. That number is 304-267-7000. If you have information that you want to keep anonymous, you can email helpfindderek, and that is Derek with one R, at gmail.com. Voices for the Silenced is an organization that is also working this case. You can contact Jen at voicesforthesilenced.org if you have any information. You can also contact her or myself, CloseRangeCrime at yahoo.com, if you would like to be involved in any type of search party or any type of event that's held in order to bring Derek home. The next case is a cold case but deserves just as much attention. This is Mary Jean Olszewski-Beatty. She was last seen by her daughter on March 4th, 2011 in Jarrettstown, West Virginia. She has brown hair, blue eyes. She is about 5'7" and weighs around 245 pounds. She has multiple tattoos, including a Pegasus on her right ankle and a butterfly on the left side of her chest. Any information about Mary Jean Olszewski-Beatty should be directed towards the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office at 304-267-7000. Please keep your eyes open. Let's help find these people. So listen, guys, again, thank you so much for sticking around until the very end. Please like and share this video so that we can get more eyes on it. You never know whose lap this might end up in, and it might be the key to solving this case. Please subscribe if you want more information as these videos come out, because again, there's going to be a couple different videos on this and consistent updates. Ways that you can become involved in this case is to go to that change.org petition in order to try to get the feds involved with this. There's also that GoFundMe page if you're financially able to help donate. Every dollar counts. All of that stuff is listed down below. Any and all help on this is very much appreciated. So again, thank you guys so much for sticking around. Until the next, I will see you later.
I asked him, I said, do you remember David Hutzler? And he's like, yeah.
I wonder why his name is Chapter 8.
This happened fast.
Somebody's here. He's outside. He's outside. Somebody's here. Like, somebody's here. here. That's somebody else.
Where was the gun? How did the murder weapon disappear?
You would have to know details that not any average person would know.
She said suspect.
These threats were going on.
David did not want him there under any circumstances.
If you're going to do something like that, automatically people are going to question your character.
I don't know what you're talking about. Extremely nervous.
I'm just curious of why he held the information that hindered the investigation.
They all involve grand larceny,
Why would they
petty
report it?
larceny, driving on a suspended license, failure to register as a sex offender,
He was the lookout.
trespassing. This is the kind of person you wonder if they even deserve the air that they did breathe. Why was this man ever out of prison?
I told you the information in the statement that I have. Who did it?
I just want some simple answers. Where's the fucking gun?
He got to the point he wouldn't even leave his house. He sat in his recliner with a pistol in his hand at all times.
I wonder if he was even questioned by police.
That's where we're at.
These have to do with the highest ranking individuals at the West Virginia State Police.
This is all Hutzler property. There's just an ongoing issue with this case, and it's one domino after another.
Because the only person he stressed fear against was his nephew. That's the only one.
The only person that benefited from this was all the way around. I'm not stopping. I'm not. They're going to put a bullet in my brain.